So what we're here for is to define Western civilization. That's, we've got to ask ourselves, what defines being civilized? Is it the arts? Is it agriculture? Sustainability? And what defines the West? Was the West, Europe, Africa, the Middle East? Or was it cowboys and Indians? That's what we're here to answer. What defines Western civilization?
So, first question here. Why was the cradle of civilization such an important starting point in Western Civ?
Well, the cradle of civilization, that's where civilization started. Mesopotamia, in between the Tigris and the Euphrates 5,000 years ago. That's when people stopped having to move constantly. They were able to settle down, start a family, 3 kids, an SUV, normal things. They did it with agriculture, right? They did it with aqueducts, trade. They birthed writing. They did a lot of things there. And then eventually civilization, it grew up. It moved on. It got out of its parents' house.
The Iron Age was the first time period that shaped Western civilization. So how did the Persians and the Assyrians contribute to it?
The Persians and the Assyrians contributing to the Iron Age, they made it. They made iron. Made iron from the iron ore, and with that they crafted advanced weaponry. They were the first militaristic society. They're the ones that started the whole military mindset. They brought up an army, swords, gave everybody armor, bow and arrow, arrowheads from the iron. And, as they said in the 300, they blotted out the skies, cast a shadow with the arrows. That's straight military right there. That's hard, right? That's iron hard. And with all those, technological advances that they made, that was their major contribution. Writing, cuneiform, they came up with their own system of writing. And laws. The Assyrians and the Persians they wrote the first laws. And then the Assyrians just decided, with their, vast army, their vast military, that they were going to kill and enslave everyone. And the Persians came up with this radical idea where they would take over and then they would give the land back to the people that they took it from. And all they had to do was pay tribute of earth and water, if I remember correctly, from the 300. And then if you didn't want to do earth and water, you got kicked into a giant well. So that was the Persians. The ancient Greeks, where to start? They started it all. Hercules, the series, Kevin Sorbo, one of my favorites growing up. Socrates, obviously, Stoicism. They had so many contributions to Western civilization. And with all those contributions, they still failed, but they did pass them on. We still embody a lot of their culture. Everybody likes gyros, right? Feta cheese. How can you say no to feta cheese? Anybody can say no to feta cheese? You're all liars. And Socrates poisoned himself because he was a free thinker. Logic, he birthed logic. He made it with his brain. And with that came reason, came ethics, came many books. He filled libraries in the time, and they didn't even have libraries. That was a new concept. Socrates was the original keep it real. He died keeping it real via poison. Horrible way to go. What killed Socrates? It was a poison.
Hemlock.
Hemlock, that's the yes, hemlock. Hemlock is some nasty Killed Socrates. Great man. We had reverse monotheism, back to polytheism. Lots of gods with them. But that birthed astronomy with all these gods. You got Mars, you got Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, Uranus. All these gods. Basically every planet is a Greek god. The Olympics, right? Lots of athletes in the room. Hey, but you're doing it the right way. Football, I see you, guy 3 rows up, far left. I got you. Football. All right, 2 rows back. No, farthest row back. Blonde girl. Basketball. Definitely a basketball player. I can tell. I'm good at this. All thanks to Greeks. All thanks to Greeks. Not the Greeks on campus. Not those guys. Not the fraternities and sororities, but the real ones. 2,000 years ago. Those Greeks with their Olympics that carry on to today.
So Rome's more impactful than the Greek. How come?
More impactful than the Greeks? I beg to differ. I mean, what did they honestly give us? Rome. Numerals that no one can understand. Everyone says iPhone X, it's iPhone 10. Oh my God, the Romans killed Jesus. Christianity? They made Christianity. What did Rome give us? They gave us the Colosseum. They gave us gladiators. Sparta, blood and sand. The movie The Gladiator. They gave us those things. They gave us concrete. That's how they built the Colosseum. The Colosseum in itself is one of the 7 wonders of the world. They could actually submerge vessels inside the Colosseum. They had a system of aqueducts inside the Colosseum where they could fill it with water way before its time. I mean, you got to think, this is a massive complex that they're filling with water and they're performing sea battles in 200 BC. Who does that? Romans. They conquered much of the known world. They stretched their empire from what was Greece and then became Rome all the way down to Egypt. They conquered everything. They built the roads. They obviously built roads, all of them, in fact. So, I mean, one of the biggest things with Rome is the fall of Rome. How did it happen? One of the great mysteries of Western civilization in general. From what I've seen on the History Channel, it was mostly because of lead in their pots. They all got lead poisoning and went crazy. But what the book tells us is that it was their loss of values. They went from having truistic Roman values to having these Christian set of values, and it wasn't good for them. Their government got too big, created a bubble, much like the bubble in the economy and the housing market that caused so many awful things in 2008 and 2012. My 401k in 2016 happens, but not because of Rome. One of the biggest things with Rome was the social classes that they created. Those social classes were essentially just aristocrats and peasants. That's what it boiled down to. They had the high-ups, and they had the nobodies, and they had the people that the nobodies owned. And that was it. And Julius Caesar, crown, kings, they were the first ones that created that system.
Medieval Europe, such a shining time.
It was.
How did that affect Western Civ?
What it all boils down to nowadays, right? Monasteries, first and foremost, with medieval Europe. And Europe as a whole hasn't been talked about. I mean, we had ancient Greece and ancient Rome, but before that it was all cradle of civilization and Egypt and Palestine, all those places. But now we're in medieval Europe. And medieval Europe had so many things to offer. The monasteries. The monasteries were a big part of medieval Europe. They were the first civilization to coin the phrase monasteries. I'm sure they are still getting trademark money off of that. But what do they do in the monasteries? They learned things. It was an educational facility. And the biggest thing that they did was they actually printed out manuscripts. The monks would sit there and they would write manuscripts of the Bible, mostly, and sell those manuscripts. That's how they financed the monastery. And that's also how they spread Christianity. It was 3 parts: spreading Christianity, making manuscripts, and making money. That's what the monasteries ended up being. They started out as a place for, people that were traveling the countryside. They didn't want to do the whole Christian thing anymore because the Romans made it a popular thing to do, and Christianity is not supposed to be a popular thing to do at this point in time. So they went to the monasteries. That's where they became monks and nuns and decided not to live like the rest of Christianity at that point in time. Medieval Europe as a whole. So because the monasteries became such a powerful thing, religion as a whole became a powerful thing. I mean, that's where we saw the rise of the popes. We have popes to this day. But the pope back then, bigger deal. He could make people fight other people and still go to heaven. Who knew? I mean, he held all the power. The popes held the power. There were three basic classes of the people. You had the people that prayed, people that fought, and the people that worked. The people that prayed were obviously like the monks and the pope and those type of guys, and the people that fought were the knights, and the people that worked were the peasants. And the peasants made everything from the land. They gave that to the knights. The knights protected the popes, and everything was hunky-dory in their civilization. Or was it? That's the real question. Some of the other big things that they gave to us, they gave crop rotations. Because of that, they were even more successful in agriculture. They built bigger shelves, and that's when they started doing the whole, stockpiling. They stockpiled wheat, their different grains, and they sold their different fruits. They made beer for the first time. There was Friar Tuck and Robin Hood and all those guys. They all got along, and it was a great time to be in medieval Europe. Biggest things from medieval Europe, they came up with this whole thing called church. Everybody likes church, unless you don't like sleeping in on Sundays. If you want to do anything on Saturday night, then don't thank medieval Europe, because they came up with church, and you have to wake up early and go with your mom, and you gotta get dressed up, and you gotta shave. And Mom, I told you I'm not going this weekend. But that's what medieval Europe came up with. They came up with the concept of church. And with that, they brought themselves even more money from tithing and everything else.
5 crusades, only one attempt was successful. How did that overall affect Western Civ?
Well, I mean, the first thing that it did was it made everyone inconfident with Western civilization as a whole, because 1 out of 5, those are bad odds. The Greeks were all about math, and we all know that 1 out of 5 is not a good chance of winning. So why did they go on the Crusades? To take back the Holy Land, is what they were told. They're going to go and they're going to take back Jerusalem, and only the first one was successful. But that's not what makes the Crusades special. What makes them special? The Pope said it was a good thing to do. The Pope said it's okay, go kill people, and you'll still get into heaven. Who knows? Maybe it worked. Maybe one day when we die, we'll see Sir Arthur, the Lion-Hearted. So the Crusades were meant to take back the Holy Lands. They didn't do that. They were meant to bring a whole bunch of relics home, like the Holy Grail. They got Ark of the Covenant, but the Ark of the Covenant is not anywhere to be known because it's the Ark of the Covenant. But they were supposed to bring that back with the Crusades, but they didn't, because all they got was Jerusalem on the first one, but they didn't get anything else on 2, 3, 4, 5, just like Rocky. What else did they do? Fought Islam. That was probably the biggest thing because of the rise of Islam. Huge topic. Islam rose into power, and much in the same way Christianity did, Islam took over the places of today. Islam rose to power much like Christianity did for the exact same reasons. They were both monotheistic to a point where their monotheism started with Judaism, and then they got their own prophets, and their prophets went their separate ways, and we were all people of the book. People of the book, we're all supposed to believe the same thing, technically. But why? Why did that happen? Islam rose to power in what is now known as the Middle East. That was the point of the Crusades. The Crusades were meant to fight this rise of Islam because Islam took over the Holy Wars. Islam took over the Holy Country, but the Holy Country is what they believed it to be. It was Jerusalem. They're still fighting there to this day because of that.